Unbelievable. My previous review was not age restricted. Like, is there someone asleep at YouTube? It's Goblin Slayer. It's Goblin Slayer. You guys don't like it. It has boobies. Why was it not age restricted? Well, I'm not the one for complaining. Let's see if we can get for another episode without getting age restricted. That would be fun, wouldn't it? Now, I really thought about continuing these reviews because it's quite controversial. On one hand, I keep seeing people unsubscribing when they're watching these reviews. I don't think people want anime on this channel. And I know they're unsubscribing because it's in the YouTube analytics. It actually tells them that they clicked on this video and then they hit unsub. But on the other hand, I know there are some very vocal fans that I will release a video about something else, and in the comment section it's like, where's the Goblin Slayer review? Where's the Goblin Slayer V? You know what? Fine, I will do it for you. For the vocal minority of people that wanted this, who constantly DM me and ask me for it, I will do it for you. I will provide this for you because you are my fans and you deserve the best. And I will just do your wishes. However, it will be on my channel always with the premiere feature. I want to see the chat and what people are talking when I'm releasing these analysis, because they're actually giving me good information about you know, what to say and what not to. I'm not really used to reviewing stuff, so you know, I want the chat. That's why it has a premiere feature. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but it's just the way it's going to be. Now, with that said, let's review this episode. This episode was actually quite amazing, in my opinion. I really liked it. There's no political commentary I can make about it because there were no politics in it. It was just a very cool dungeon crawling experience. If you're a fan of D&D or if you're a fan of MMOs, you will love this episode. It was absolutely well executed. It was incredibly well done, and we actually have a lot of talking to do about character development again. Now, when you have a dark story like Goblin Slayer, you need to have some sort of character that comes up with jokes that kind of lift the spirits up, because you need to lift up the audience spirits in order to become dark again. If the story would constantly be dark, then the audience would be desensitized to it and they wouldn't really appreciate those nasty moments. As such, in this show, unlike Lord of the Rings, where the dwarf used to be the butt of all jokes, and he would be the comic relief, or you'd have Merry and Pippin that would crack jokes every now and then in order to lift up the moods before a big battle or something would happen. Here it seems that the elf is the character that comes with the humor. And the jokes that the writers are making at her expense are very well done. They're not demeaning her character in any way. They're not taking away from the respect that the viewer has towards her. They're just excellent. Like, here's one of them.
敏感だ。特に女、子供、エルフの匂いには。
いやよ、こいつ止めてよ。慣れますよ。
And this is how the episode starts. So the audience is already cheerful, is in a happy mood, it's ready to experience more of these characters' adventure, only for the writers to be able to bring the audience back into that dark place and remind them that this is actually a very horrible universe where really bad things can happen. Now, I want to point out why Goblin Slayer does characters incredibly well. Unlike Dragon Ball, for example, or unlike a lot of Western media. When Western media does superheroes, it's all about who's the most powerful superhero. It's like Superman is stronger than everyone else, and you know, Wonder Woman is very powerful and she can kick ass. So usually in the Western media or in Dragon Ball, it's all about who can gain the most power, who is the guy who has the more power. The problem with doing this is that you're going to take other characters which are very fun to see on screen, that have very interesting personalities. You're going to take them off. Like, they just can't compete. You can't have someone like Puar in Dragon Ball be next to Goku, even if Puar has an interesting personality, or Yamcha, for example. The more the power level increases for the main character, the less relevant the supporting characters are, and they will never get screen time. However, there are shows like Goblin Slayer, like Naruto, which does it very well. Sure, one character can be arguably more powerful than the other, but when they need to tackle some great evil, they combine their forces, they combine their skills, and together they manage to overcome whatever challenge awaits them. And because of that, every single character is important. And by doing this type of tactic, you can actually have great characters that are not going to become irrelevant. And we see a glimpse of that with the ranger, who is able to detect traps. And other characters don't seem to have this ability, or if they do, they're not as proficient as she is at it. So she is a very important person in the group, regardless of the fact that she's skilled with doing damage and firing her bow. This ability comes very handy in this particular environment. And there is a discussion at one point where the Goblin Slayer actually tells her if she doesn't like it, she can go back. And she basically points out that she is very useful, that without her it would be difficult for the party to be able to navigate the labyrinth and find the traps. So I really enjoyed this type of storytelling. I really enjoy it, which again is a lot better than Dragon Ball. I like to compare Dragon Ball with, I guess, World of Warcraft, where if you power up, if you level up, you reach a point where you're so powerful that low-level characters just can't do damage to you. Low-level monsters don't do damage to you, they become irrelevant. Meanwhile, this type of storytelling, which is similar to Naruto, where different ninjas have like different skills that they can use in combination with each other, to be more like League of Legends or Dota, where you can have like several low-level characters that can still beat a high-level character if they manage to combine their abilities together in an interesting way. And it's also great for the writers to see how they come up with innovations with way that they can combine these abilities. And this is not something you see in a lot of Western cartoons. Like if you look at even really good cartoons from DC, for example, you will see that usually there's a danger. You have the Justice League coming in, and they're trying to tackle Doomsday or whatever, and Doomsday just beats up all of them. And then finally Superman comes, and Superman just does the one-on-one with Doomsday, and he manages to win. So this kind of diminishes the accomplishment of the other characters. They're almost there to be like a supporting role where, you know, they manage to fill in for Superman before the main event. And I don't know if that's as interesting as this Japanese way of telling stories. Again, I don't think there is anything like this in Western media. I can't think of any cartoon or any type of show where you have characters with different abilities that they use in combos and in combination with each other in order to tackle some overwhelming force. Maybe there is, but if you know of any, please let me know in the comment section and give me such an example. Now, as they're exploring the dungeon, do you know what they find? They find a way to demonetize this video. Apparently, they managed to find an elvish woman which is chained to the wall, and she has constantly been Swedish snuggled by the other goblins. And this is actually a very tense moment, because the Goblin Slayer just raises his sword at her, and people think that he's going to try to kill her. But instead there's actually a goblin behind her, and he kills it. And it was just like this, you know, very few seconds where the writers managed to create a very tenseful situation. And it was really good. Very well done, very well executed. Now we finally get to see the furry's abilities, which are pretty awesome. Apparently he can summon pets. Seems to be like a pet class. And he can also summon weapons. So he probably is like this sort of melee fighter pet class, which is really cool. And I'm really interested to see where the writers of the show are going to take this character. He seems very powerful on his own, and I'm very curious to see if he's got any new abilities or any other tricks up his sleeve. Now, as they reach the final chamber where all the goblins lie, again we see this combination of abilities. The dwarf manages to cast a spell in order to put the goblins to sleep, while the priestess manages to cast a spell that creates an area of silence. So now they can kill the goblins individually without them screaming and waking the others up. And this is what I'm talking about. It's really well done, really well executed, and it's very similar to what you would experience if you play Dungeons and Dragons with your friends. This clever use of game mechanics, combining spells that probably have different uses, like for instance silence, you would use it on a spellcaster, while putting someone to sleep would be used as a way to bypass a guard or something like that. But using these two spells together is actually something that can be used offensively. And I think this entire episode, all of the characters were just rolling critical 20s all the time. Either that or the goblins were just rolling critical failure with a 1 on the dice. People who play D&D just know this type of event where you're going through a dungeon and the party is so lucky that it frustrates the GM because everything they're trying, no matter how ridiculous or outlandish it is, they manage to succeed. Now, what's really interesting is the character development, especially the one regarding the elf. It seems that all this darkness, and what I mean by it is the fact that she manages to see another elf being chained and taharushed, the fact that she is getting covered in blood and is walking through these places that she doesn't experience in her forest, and she's surrounded by so many monsters, it seems to actually affect her psyche. It seems to actually push her over the edge, and this can be seen in the way she's actually slaying the goblins. I think you have a little bit of goblin on your face, dear. Like you need to wipe that off. It's not cool. But anyway, so apparently, as I thought that the episode is going to be finished, the boss arrives. And this is interesting because the Goblin Slayer doesn't even know what this boss is. The other party members seem to know that it is an ogre, but the Goblin Slayer has no idea. Now, I did a mistake last episode where I actually said that the Goblin Slayer is a Mary Sue. I withdraw that. People corrected me. You're absolutely right. And this even shows in this episode the fact that the Goblin Slayer is completely useless at fighting the ogre. He has absolutely no idea how to fight him because he is used to fighting goblins and his equipment is built around fighting goblins. So when he fights an ogre, he gets his ass handed to him in the beginning. Now, I want again to point out a very interesting fact about the way characters are being done. The priestess apparently is a porcelain ranked adventurer. Like, she is the lowest of the low. She just began her journey. All the other fighters, they're silver ranked. They are almost the top of the hero list. And what's interesting is because they have different abilities, because they are able to excel in different areas, the priestess manages to save the day. And because up till now, the priestess was this very scared girl that wasn't able to accomplish much of anything without the help from the Goblin Slayer, seeing her take the charge and perform this extremely heroic feat makes the audience really root for her, makes the audience really enjoy this character. I personally thought that she would be a support character that sits in the back, that just, tags along for the adventure. But after seeing this, I'm actually rooting for the priestess. I think she is actually one of my favorite characters in the show right now. So I'll just play this for you so you can enjoy what she did as well.
じゃがこれではどこに逃げても
糸千日深き地母神よか弱き我らをどうか大地のお力でお守りください
ヤクタ
プロテクション糸千日深き地母神よか弱き我らをどうか大地のお力でお守りくださいプロテクション
I mean, this was utterly amazing writing. Everything fit into place since episode 1 till this point. Had this character been a Mary Sue, had she been Rey from Star Wars, that would have just waved her hand and made the fireball disappear, this wouldn't have been impressing at all. It would have been expected from Rey from Star Wars to be able to perform such a feat. But because this character was constantly portrayed as being weak and helpless without the help of someone, when she finally takes the reins and she finally does something useful for the party, it is absolutely amazing. And again, I'm rooting for this character. I want to see where they take it from here. Now, during the boss battle, all the characters seem to be very good at what they're specialized in. the ranger manages to run around and fire an arrow that hits the boss right in the eye. The dwarf seems to have this weird ability of summoning stones and then kicking them and they fly like bullets into the boss. I definitely expected this would be a melee class, but it seems that no, the dwarf might be actually a ranged drunken fist fighter. And the pet class summons the pet, also summons a weapon and charges at the boss in melee range. While the support is actively trying to heal up the fallen party members by giving them a stamina and a health potion. So it's really well done. And what's interesting is that the boss actually manages to regenerate. It seems that none of the heroes are doing a dent to it. And now it's powering a second fireball. And they don't have the priestess to be able to do another protection spell because she used all her spells. So I was on the edge of my seat. I was wondering how are they going to escape with this. And the way they did it is something they built up from the previous episode. People who were paying attention closely could have figured it out. And this is good storytelling when the lore fits, when the viewer who pays attention to details is rewarded later on. This is very great storytelling. It happens in very few shows, like for instance the first episodes of Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. You notice that the writers constantly do this. They give the viewer some hints in order to be able to figure out stuff that will happen later on if they're paying close attention. And in this case, the hint was that in the previous episode, we noticed that the Goblin Slayer has a couple of scrolls. And these scrolls are magical scrolls that are a one-time use only. And as he opens one of these scrolls, the boss suddenly dies. And then it's explained why. Apparently, the scroll that he opened was a town portal. It's what adventurers use in order to go to town faster. But he actually modified the town portal by connecting it to the bottom of the ocean, where the pressure of the water is so great that when he opened the scroll, the water just flew out and acted like a blade, cutting up the ogre in multiple pieces. So this was really smart, very interesting use of clever game mechanics. And that was this entire episode. It was really great. I'm very hyped up to see what's going to happen next. And we also know that all of the characters took a psychological toll from this adventure. And the elf herself actually mentions that this is not what adventures should be and what she's used to. Adventures are about discovering the unknown. And she's going to take the Goblin Slayer one day to an actual adventure. This was too dark for her. And I guess this is a really nice comment on the different types of GMs. Some GMs love to have their fantasy stories very bright, very light, with the characters going on an adventure and constantly winning, while other DMs seem to prefer this grim, dark universe where the characters are constantly tortured and they're usually being facing insurmountable odds. And I guess this universe is the latter. So let me know what you think. And if you enjoy this, please leave a message into the comment section. And I'll see you all on the next review.